We are continuing on Hilchot Shabbat, and we are starting the halachot of the preparations for Shabbat. But one of the things that we're going to discuss is rechitza b'Shabbat. Can you take a shower? Can you go to mikveh? What is mutar to wash? What is not mutar to wash on Shabbat? Now, the Shulchan Aruch has a pretty clear directive that a person cannot wash their entire body on Shabbat with warm water, or for that matter, even with lukewarm water. This is a whole sugya in Masechet Shabbat, Daf Mem, the Tosafot, and so on, and ending with a clear cut Shulchan Aruch in Siman Shin Chaf Gimal. So the halacha is asur lirchotz kol gufo b'Shabbat afilu b'mayim shu chamu b'erev Shabbat. Even if you have hot water that was prepared from before Shabbat. So imagine you're running late for Shabbat, so you warm up the water, you put it aside. You're not, you have a hot tub of water, and you want to afterwards, after Shabbat comes in, you want to just go wash yourself. I'm not warming up anything. Still would be asur to wash your body with the water that was heated up from before Shabbat. Ever, even if you're not doing it, jumping into the pool, but you're washing limb by limb, still would be not permissible. And doesn't make a difference if the pool of water is in the ground, or even if you're pouring water on yourself, you're not going into a body of water in the ground, still would be a problem. Whether it's in the kli, it's in the karka, even if you're pouring water on yourself, all of those are included in this issue, this gezerah of merchatzaot. Aval mutar lilchos b'mayim chamim panav yadav raglav. But if you have hot water which doesn't have issue of warming up water on Shabbat, then you could wash your face and your hands. That you could do, right? You can do panav yadav raglav, your face, your hands, your feet. You can wash. And so long as the majority of your body you're not washing, that would be fine. Now, how about natural bodies of hot water? Chamet varia. But you have natural sources of hot water, natural hot springs. So you go into these hot springs. Is it mutar to jump in to the hot springs on Shabbat and have a little bath, right? Based on what we said, everyone is looking with nodding their heads, and no, absolutely not, right? That's why someone is hinting to me, says that's why it says Chamet Varia passed by Geinam, to tell you that if you go there, but really the truth is the halacha is it's mutar to go and bathe your entire body in Chamet Varia. It's not a problem, even if you're going into the ground. If you take the Chamet Varia out, then it becomes a problem. But so long as you're going mamash in the ground where the natural body of the hot spring water is, that would be fine. Even if they built a structure around it to make it sanua and nice and beautiful and make a whole business out of it, which probably they have done. So that still is fine. You could go inside there, even though that it becomes hot and now you are sweating. It becomes like a sauna, and sauna is a problem. Over here, by Chamet Tvaria, which is a natural hot spring of water, would be fine. But if you already are streaming the hot water into a vessel, now you have next to it a thing that you pour the water. It still has maybe the chemicals of Chamet Tveria, but it's more of a fancy setting. That you pour the water, you drew the water somewhere else. That already becomes a problem. And also, you could wash your whole body with cold water if you want to. Even your whole body you could do. Now, obviously, you have to be mindful of other potential problems of washing your body on Shabbat. For instance, shchita is a problem. If you're washing your head and you have areas that you have a lot of hair, your beard under the arms, and so on and so forth. you have to be careful not to come to the isur of shchita. You potentially have issues with using soap on Shabbat, depending on what type of soap you use and which posek you follow. So therefore, a person should, even if they want to do it with cold water, you should really um, ask your LOR, a competent Moreh Hora'ah, to see how to go about it. But as far as the rechitza is concerned, if you're doing it with freezing cold water, that would be just fine. Umutar letraches bemet tvaria. You could go to the waters of Hamet Tvaria, even if your doctor prescribed that you have to be going to the hot springs of water of Tveria because you need it for refuah, you need it for um, medical purposes, that's still fine because people who don't mean medical purposes also go there. It's a pretty normal thing to do. And once it's not clearly noticed that you're doing something for refuah, even if it has a fringe benefit aside, to'elet, it's good for refuah, it's just fine. It's not a problem. People do it for ta'anug, for pleasure, so even though that you have an additional purpose in it, it still would be fine. It's not mukha milta. It's not clearly noticed that you're doing it for refuah. Now, o yishtof adam kol gufo besinen v'yitchamem keneged hamadura. So he's you know what? I'm gonna go take a freezing cold shower, and I'm gonna be freezing afterwards. So I'm gonna go afterwards and um, sit in front of the fireplace to warm up the water that's on me. This way it will be warm and nice. Because first of all, you are warming up the water that's on you, and um, even though that when you washed yourself, it was cold water. Now in retrospect, it's considered that you're washing yourself. It's extension of washing yourself with the hot water. But at the same time, if you want to do it the other way around, you could. You want to go in front of the fireplace and become like boiling hot, and then makes it a little easier for you to jump into the cold water and cool off. I'm not sure if that works or not. The psychology of it, if it's the super change, it helps or not. But when you're very very hot, then you enjoy the cold water a little bit more, and it makes it a little bit more doable. Yeah, it's mutar. There's no problem with that. If you don't look at it that your body is clearly shown, not cliche. Now you're warming up the water. That's not that's not necessarily a problem. והנוטל ידיו במים צוננים רשאי לחמם ידו אצל האש. If you did, it's a freezing cold day of winter, you did נטילת ידיים, and your hands are freezing, and you want to just go in front of the fireplace to warm up your hands a little bit, that's fine. Obviously, um, you don't want to be close enough that it's going to become boiling, but it's not going to become yatzoled, where that's going to be uncomfortable. So you want to just warm it up a little bit, even though that you haven't fully dried your hands, and still the water is becoming a little bit mayim poshrim, warm water. It's fine because again, you could have washed your hands with warm water anyways. It's yadav parav yadav raglav. That would be not a problem. Now, a woman that tonight would be their lel tefillah, Leil Shabbat, and the water of the mikveh is hot. So we just mentioned that you can't have a hot bath on Shabbat, right? So he's full-fledged Yisur Darabanan, right? So how do you deal with that? This is in Siman Shir Chavav. I may have mentioned Shir Chavav Gimel. In Shir Chavav in Shulchan Aruch, you can't do it. So says the halacha over here, והמים של מקווה חמים או פושרים. It's either hot or even warm. Warm is bad enough already. טוב שתהיה טבילתן בתוך זמן בין השמשות. The best is, says Chabad, this is a very involved sugya, without getting into the crux of the details of this sugya. Says Chabad, the best would be that they should go to mikveh early on, right after Shkia, between the time of the twilight, because then it's Safek Yom, Safek Laila, and you have a lot of Fekes Fekot. Now, this is good for the mikveh aspect of it, but it's also good for Shabbat aspect because a safek derabanan would be lekula, right? The Rashmashot, this is the isur derabanan, this whole gezerah merchatzaot, and safek yom safek laila in ben Hashmashot it will be mutar, right? So that's the psak that Chabad gives. There are others who rely on a korban netanel. Korban netanel on the Pirush Harosh on Shas says that the tzorech mitzvah it's mutar. This isur in Siman Shin Chaflav is only when you just want to jump and have a nice warm bath. That's asur. But you're doing it the tzorech mitzvah mutar. Many disagree with this. Korban netanel is dat yachid. And there are others who wants to say, well, it's only when it's hot, but if it's warm, lukewarm, it's fine. But you see from the writings of the Geonim already, the early time, the Rav Shira Gaon, Rav Niturai Gaon, Rav Hai Gaon, you see that even my poshrim is a problem. So kind of like it's a checkmate situation, and therefore Chavadia says the best would be go in Beresh Mashot. If you didn't, you still have what to rely on, definitely, and what to rely on to go afterwards. But if it's your choice and you're able to do it in Berash Mashot, that would be the preferred method. Now, what does that say about men who go to mikveh on Shabbat morning? According to Kabbalah, there is a um, there is a source that a person should be going not to mikveh not just on Erev Shabbat, but should also go Shabbat morning. Forget about those people who are makbid on Tfilat Ezra, which the Hasidim definitely are, and many other Sfaradim are as well. We mentioned this before parenthetically that the Rambam was asked by the Dayan of Alexandria, Rabbi Pinchas Dayan, why did he omit from Yad HaChazakah the whole concept of Tfilat Ezra? And Rambam said I didn't omit it. I wrote a chibur. Chibur is a halachic halachot for all of Klal Yisrael and only includes halachic concepts. So this, even though that's a halachic concept, is talui beminhag. The takana of Israel was not accepted across the board by all of Klal Yisrael. It was accepted in certain places. Those places are obliged they're obligated to go with the takana. They can't break it, but those places we didn't accept, and Rama actually, by the way, says, I come from a place that we accept the takana Ezra, and therefore he says, I testify that I never have ignored the Tevilat Ezra unless I was sick. Who writes this? Rama was makpid on Tevilat Ezra, and he needed it, and he writes actually the areas of Bavel, so probably areas surrounding Bukhara, Iran, Iraq. All those places probably are considered Eres Shinar of yesteryear, and he also they perhaps are have to do it. So either if you're one of the Hasidim or Hasidim and Shem Maaseh, that goes to mikveh every day, or you want to be makbid like the Mekubalim, like the Ben Ish Chai brings, that there is a concept of going to mikveh Shabbat morning to accept the Tosefet Naran, Tosefet Nefesh Ruach Neshama of Shabbat morning, which is separate than the Naran of Friday night. So you want to go to mikveh, but the only mikveh that's available, it's nice and hot, right? So mutar asur. Well, if you go with Korban Netanel, maybe you could say that we extend the Sorach mitzvah to this also. Not really a Sorach mitzvah, right? But according to Chaubadia, that even that is very questionable. It's a very, very b'di'evet thing. Perhaps one again, this is the areas you have to ask your Moreh Hora'ah, but perhaps Yotzeh Scharo be'efsedo. You gain a little bit, you lose a whole lot more. If you put this on a scale of halacha, it certainly would tip over the scale of a serious safek on transgressing a full-fledged isur derabanan for something kabbalistic that you want to gain, that you may or may not need. So that's the gist of this whole mikveh question on Friday night and on Shabbat morning for men and for women, but water that has been warmed up on Shabbat through Dut Shemesh. Now, this is not a reality that we really deal with, and also we have to have a serious disclaimer that the Dut Shemesh that the Poskim in Eretz Yisrael speak about from 65 years ago until now has been very much modified and changed. We're not using the same exact system of Dut Shemesh that they used to have when Chacham Ovadia first wrote this tshuva that became a very controversial and heated topic back then, some 65 years ago. Nowadays, the Dut Shemesh is much more sophisticated and perhaps um, not as permissible as it used to be in its inception in the beginning. Now, still, Chobadia held, even this again, this is the last volume that he actually wrote before he passed away. Now, Chobadia writes that Maim Shu Chamu b'Shabbat Ali Dut Shemesh. If you have water that has been heated up through Dut Shemesh, right, the solar system that they have in Eretz Yisrael called Dut Shemesh, afilu im פתחו הברז בשבת להשתמש במים חמים שבהם. It has been heated up during Shabbat, and you want to open the water and use that water for washing dishes and whatnot. It's mutar, no problem. ונכנסו לתוך הדוד מים סוננים. Now what happens is you're washing the dishes with the old water that's been heated up. What does that do? That makes it the new water, cold water, right? It's going to enter the Dut Shemesh and get heated up on Shabbat. You're directly doing that. Well, kind of directly, right? This becomes another very involved question of Koch Sheni, Koch Shlishi, on how we deal with that. But this is a vacuumed system. So therefore, when you empty a drop of water, a drop of water enters the system, right? And now you're heating up that water on Shabbat. Nitzame musham b'Shabbat. So you know for sure the water that is now in Dut Shemesh on Shabbat afternoon has been heated up during Shabbat, right? Can I wash my body with it? Everyone looks at the next guy because they don't want to answer this question, right? Chavadia holds, and this is where the controversy hits. Chavadia holds that this is not at all included in the regular gezerat of gezerat merchatzaot. It's a whole different system, and hence mutar lirchos bahem panav yadav raglav. You could wash with it. Panav yadav raglav is not considered like a regular water that was heated up on Shabbat as asur to use, right? Because they were huchamu beheter. They became heated up with heter. So therefore, it's like water shu chamu of Shabbat. It's like water that were heated up from before Shabbat that you could wash parav yadav raglav, and obviously you can wash your whole body. You can't take like a nice hot shower on Shabbat because that even if the water was heated up from before Shabbat, you cannot do. We mentioned. So that's the Dut Shemesh. Again, we don't necessarily deal with that reality here in the United States, but Mishragil Traches Kol Gufo Midei Yom B'Yomo. A person that is accustomed to take a shower every single day. And if you don't take a shower every morning when you wake up, you're a dead body. It's like you're mamash in sar. Can't deal with yourself. Mutar lo lechos kat kol gufo gam b'Shabbat ma'im she'uchamu me'erev Shabbat. This is one of the big chidushim of Chacham Ovadia, that for him it would be mutar to do it with hot water, even with hot water, but provided that it was obviously uchamu me'erev Shabbat. It was heated up for before Shabbat. Well, you have to be careful with all the other halachot, right? Of skita and nolad, and molid, and all those things you have to be careful still with. But as far as the rechitza is concerned, Chavadia holds that is mutar. Now, this is not necessarily Chavadia's chiddush. It comes from Rav Kiva Eger already as early as this is the first comment of Rav Kiva Eger on Siman Chafav and Shcharuch. And again, it's a very involved sugya of why this exactly happens the way it does. But the Mari Irgis, Buralacha of the Chafetz Chaim, all of those are discussed. And the bottom line, Halacha Chobadia is willing to be mekel, lenient, that a person could even wash the entire body with a water that was huchamu me'erev Shabbat, that was heated up from before Shabbat, and that would be mutar. Asur lated al bitno b'Shabbat kirishish b'mayim chamim. Now, people who have this hot water. What do they call them exactly? They use for compressing and putting hot water. Hot water is not. You put it for relieving pain, right? Yeah, the rubber thing. People know what I'm talking about, right? Um, right. That's correct. So that asur latet al bitno b'Shabbat kol sheyesh bo mayim chamim. Right? You cannot put that on you when he has hot water inside. Um, and you would think that it is a problem of refuah and so on and so forth, right? It's a very practical gezerah Chazal made. Chazal were concerned that this is going to open up and pour on you and burn you, right? It's like actually a sakana thing, not a refuah thing. So therefore, Chazal banned using this on Shabbat. Shema yishfechu al rov gufo, and it's going to be if it opens and it pours on you. Forget about the issues of sakana. It also could be an issue of rechitza b'Shabbat, right? You're going to be washing the spills on your body. The majority, your body is the majority of body, the actual trunk of a person's body. So therefore, it would be an issue. Afilu bechol asur lasot ken, and they also extended the ban on weekdays as well. Mipnei sakana, as we mentioned, because of sakana, you may come to burn yourself. Shepa'amim shehem protkim, because sometimes it's really hot, and um, you could come to hurt yourself. That, says Chalabadia, nowadays is less of an issue. Nowadays that you have a real system, is a in a standard kli, and the viabilities of lawsuits and so on and so forth. They make sure that it tightens very well and it closes securely, and therefore nowadays during the week would be mutar to do it, but still, um, you know, one should wonder whether or not on Shabbat it would be mutar. It seems from Chacham Badia that even on Shabbat it would be mutar because we're not really choshesh to just open up and pour on you unless you really want to open it. It does not necessarily open by itself. So therefore, seems like nowadays both accounts would be allowed and not an issue. Now there are some leftover halachot of Rechitza that we have not discussed yet, and with Hashem we will continue to discuss them in the days to come.